PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. I'd like to turn my attention to the World Rapid Play Championship that took place in New York just after Christmas. It was won by Volodar Murzin. He's just 18 years old, from Russia, playing under the FIDE flag. He won the tournament convincingly with 10 out of 13. Clear first. In a moment, I'm going to show you his game against Fabiano Caruana, which I think was a fantastic achievement to beat Caruana. In fact, the opposition that Murzin faced was pretty formidable. So, for example, he played against Aronian, Dominguez, Aragaisi, Giri, Nakamura, Duda, Grishuk, Praginananda. This is a really deserved victory, has to be said. He's not the youngest ever winner of the World Rapid Play. That honour belongs to Noribek Abdusatorov. He was just 17 when he won. And of course, he's gone on to become a seriously strong classical player. He's in the top 10 in the world. And I think we'll be seeing Murzin make great strides. At the moment, he's like numbers 60 or something in the world in classical chess, but I'm sure he'll make great strides. Incredible talent. So let's look at this game against Caruana. Played in round 2. Murzin playing white. Generally, he plays in a pretty solid style. He reminds me of those sort of very classical Soviet players. There's a kind of right way to do things. You get a healthy pawn structure. You bring your pieces to good squares. And when your opponent steps out of line, then you punish them. So Murzin playing white. Now, he doesn't go for an open Sicilian straight away. He plays knight c3. In my anti-Sicilians course and book, I recommend pawn to e5. If you're a Kalashnikov player, then you have to stop d4 basically. But Caruana was going for something else. Knight f6. e5 can't be played because of knight g4 and that e-pawn's in trouble. But Murzin now goes for an open Sicilian. And Caruana plays the Sveshnikov. Well, that's an opening I'm really fond of. I've played for many years. Of course, it features a backward d-pawn. There are pros and cons to every opening. I've been recommending the Kalashnikov, of course. I actually brought out a video comparing the Kalashnikov, which goes like this. You play e5 a move earlier. If you want to check out that video, please do. I go into the pros and cons of the openings. One of the reasons one of the disadvantages if you're going to play the Sveshnikov is that there is much more really sharp theory to learn. So let's just take a look at this. So Murzin plays knight b5, best move. d6, bishop g5, all main line. One of the main lines. And here the really sharp stuff can take place after bishop takes. Black has to recapture with the pawn and knight d5, and then it can really blow up. But Murzin goes for knight d5, and this is far more strategic. And after bishop e7, he simply exchanged on f6. Now c3 is probably the most popular move there, but c4 has also been played a great deal, and this kind of fixes the queenside pawn structure. So it's been seen on many occasions. Bishop e2, and both sides castle. g6. So that's important. You want to be able to just take that bishop out of the range of that knight on d5. Pretty standard stuff. And sometimes you have to be very careful, but sometimes you can launch the f-pawn. So rook d1. So Murzin playing really orthodox way. He's got his pieces in the middle. Rook to the d file. Bishop e6. Yeah, that's where the bishop so often belongs when you have a pawn on e5. And bishop f3. Okay, here's the first moment where I'd like you to take a think. How would you play with black? I think Caruana kind of, well, I won't say anything more. How would you play as black? I'll have a quick drink, you have a quick think. Caruana kind of hesitated here. He played queen b8. In fact, I mean, this looks a bit anti-positional, but the most straightforward way of playing is just to eliminate that knight. Now, if pawn takes, then the knight bounces round via b8, a6 into c5, and once that knight is on c5, well, I think you can see black doesn't have any difficulties there at all. And if queen takes, then queen b6. So basically, getting rid of that knight just gives black much more freedom. Of course, queen takes would actually lose the queen, that would be trapped. And black is ready to get going with counterplay on the queen side. Black doesn't have any difficulty there at all. But as I say, oh yes, and if f5, hands up, who wanted to play the good old f-pawn forward, because Murzin has set up very solidly with the bishop here, basically it doesn't have much effect. You know, white can start to undermine black's queen side. Caruana hesitated with queen b8. And that allowed Murzin to kind of regroup on the king side like this. See, rook, you know, this rook b8, rook b7, it's very slow. And you can see now that Murzin, having put the bishop back here, he's launched forward with that f-pawn. And, you know, black's pieces, mage pieces, they're kind of rather separate from the king side. And now Murzin is doing extremely well. Really nice initiative. So knight d4 played. Knight e3. Yes, the knight looks quite good on d4, but, well, these are strong and white is ready to push forward with f5. So Caruana goes to the traditional counterplay, opening up the a file, but f5, this is nasty. Caruana exchanges and then takes on b3 and plays rook a7. Now, if f6 straight away, then the bishop bounces out to h6. So that's why Murzin played queen e3, covering the h6 square, and now that is a serious threat because the bishop would be stuck in the corner. f6. Undesirable but necessary. That move has to be stopped, but that's such an ugly move. Blocks in the bishop, but also opens up the 7th rank, opens up this diagonal. Black king is in the long term much weaker. Okay, Murzin continues with the kingside attack. Let's just launch those pawns forward. Why not? This is strong. Caruana thrashing around for counterplay. He would very much like the queens to be exchanged, but Murzin's having none of it. Queen h3. And g5, there we are. So more pressure on the f-file, on f6. And perhaps this diagonal is opening up for the queen as well. Rook d3. Rook swings across, also protects b3. Pawn takes pawn. Really, this has to be done. If rook b2, then it's time to exchange on g6. And you can see that that bishop is going to come in on e6, and there's pressure here as well. So that's why Caruana exchanged on g5 and exchanged again here. But obviously, these pawns are going to push forward and black is in huge trouble. e4, I mean, that's a kind of desperado pawn sack to bring this bishop into the game, but this must be good. It's a mystery to me why Murzin didn't simply take this pawn. This is winning. Crushing attack. Instead, he hesitated. Remember, it's rapid play, so, we're on move 35 here. They're running really short of time. And only now he took this. But still, it's a winning position for white. Murzin is a pawn up and has a great attack. The problem is, to finish off a position like this, you need time to calculate. And, when you're playing with a fast time control, there's no time to calculate. You can't think variations through. If Murzin had had time, I'm sure he would have gone for the most direct move here. He played queen g4, but the most direct move, of course, is g6. After pawn takes, you see, this is a winning move, but you need time to calculate this. So that has to be taken. There's a knight fork, and then a check. You can do it all with forcing moves. f6 here, takes, here, and mate. All forced. Well, from a certain point. g6, I mean, black has options here, but this is winning, basically. But Murzin hesitated. He played queen g4. I think he saw this rook potentially coming in, supported by the bishop, and he wanted to put his rook here. It's still good for white, but he's hesitated. And Caruana just has a slim chance now. Okay, rook a1, rook's exchanged, king g2. If there's a check here, then the king can step up to f3. Seems good enough. So the rook came back to protect h7. And at this point, white can play pretty steadily. You could play king f3, you could play rook h5, maybe queen h3 afterwards. This is a winning position. But Murzin just decided to exchange pieces. He obviously thought this is winning, nice and steady. He reaches, he simplifies the position. In fact, it's not so clear. Caruana defended like a demon here. Queen e8. This still seems like it should be a really easy win. In fact, it's quite tricky. Again, it's one of those moments where, well, the secret of good technique is good calculation. The problem is you don't have enough time to calculate your winning continuation. So if you'd had enough time here, again, the most direct move is queen g4. And after this, you see, you'd have time to calculate that now the king is safe and this queen is way offside. And then it's all down to the king side. So mate threatened here, and then f6, game over. Black's got to give up a piece, and that is absolutely over with an extra piece. But instead, you've got a beautiful knight, you're a pawn up, or 2 pawns up at the moment. Just queen c2, Murzin decides just to shut out that queen. He doesn't want to have to calculate the intricacies of what happens when the queen comes down to check. But now it's not so clear. Incredibly, Caruana has counterplay. Knight e3. Queen d1. Of course, an exchange of queens here would be instantly game over with an extra pawn, a good knight versus bad bishop. I mean, Murzin obviously thought that the king stepping up, this is pretty safe. must be winning. But check this out. Caruana played queen c1 here. Incredibly, queen e1. Let me get to queen e1. This should draw for black. And in fact, white has to be incredibly careful. I mean, when I was looking at this, I found this astonishing. But look at this. Okay, so first of all, I repeat, this did not happen. But I'm going to show you this because it's so remarkable and so beautiful. So queen h1 mate is threatened. So the king steps up. Still seems really safe. But queen h1 check. Now, if king e6, queen b7, white resigns. Threat of mate here. If f6, queen check. And you win the queen. Deadly skewer. Okay, so what about queen e4? Surely that's safe for white. Queen a1. Okay, watch out. Queen a8 threatened. c5 is the only move to draw here. Again, king e6 is end of game. This wins the queen. The only move to draw is c5. This is remarkable, just to give the king a little bit more freedom. Check. And this is a draw by perpetual check. Remarkably, again, king e6 would be fatal. I mean, it's extraordinary to me that black can survive and even create mating threats. But Caruana played queen c1. And queen d1 should be played here, but king d5. Now, this will transpose to the lines we've just looked at if queen h1 is played. But instead, queen a1 played by Caruana. I mean, this also is very scary because of the threats here. But c5 is a very good move, and it's different in this case. Here, Caruana makes a big blunder. He is under massive pressure because, the tables are turning and white now has chances to attack the king. He should play bishop c7. But divining that in a rapid play game is impossible. I mean, black is still under massive pressure here. I would say odds on white should win, but well, okay, apparently black can hold. But queen d4, definitely a mistake. So queen's exchange, I mean, that must have come as a massive relief to Murzin. If bishop takes, knight c4, you can see this knight controls everything. And yeah, you can push the pawn down here. Pawn takes, played, knight d5, good move. This pawn is threatened, this bishop is threatened, and this is really simple. That knight does a fantastic job blockading the d-pawn, and then white has these two passed pawns that can be just shepherded down the board by the king. Here Caruana resigned. Let's just see what could happen if king h7 will push again. And king e7. Well, the bishop, I'm afraid, can't control both pawns. One of them is going through, for example. Yeah, I mean, I thought that was a fascinating game in all its phases. Interesting opening. I think that's a key position, and it's counterintuitive to give up that lovely bishop on e6, but eliminating that knight really does improve black's chances because these dark squares are basically so weak, and there's queen-type counterplay. Anyway, Murzin played superbly in the World Rapid Play and was a deserved winner. I do want to show you another game from the World Rapids play. I mean, there was lots of interesting chess, but anyway, that's going to be in the next video, and I'll be featuring Arjun Erigaisi from India. Thanks for watching. See you soon.